Hafre, Mogisin, and Ranim. Welcome back. Another week, another show, another episode. And ladies and gentlemen, I am proud and I'm so happy and I can't believe it. We made it this far. And welcome you guys to the 100th episode of the One Micronesia Podcast. And the person to get on this episode, I think for me, has been somebody that I've always wanted to jump on the podcast with me. It's just that he's been so busy, 2 terms in the Guam legislature. So you know how busy that can get. So I am so honored to have him on the podcast with me, the one, the only Senator Clynt Ridgell. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Vic. It's my honor.
So, wow, Senator, we kick off the podcast here, the 100th episode, and I can't even believe I'm saying 100th episode. I can't. Man,
that's an amazing accomplishment. First of all, congratulations to you.
Thank you
on your 100th episode of this One Micronesia podcast. Man, that's a huge milestone.
Thank you. It is. It's been huge, and I go around, the stores, and I do all these events and stuff, and it really has shown that it's working. Just a real background, if you're wondering like how it all began, we started the podcast in 2019, literally days after the machete attacks in Manilao. Mm-hmm. So I got to shout it out to Sabrina Salas Matanani for bringing that idea up.
Oh, absolutely.
Teaming up with Paul Tapao to create something to kind of take light away from all the negativity that was
right.
that was being that the FSM community was facing at the time. And it was crazy, and even I stopped reading the comments after that. I think if you're somebody who loves reading comments, I think when you read those types of comments, you're just like, oh wow, So yes, that's how far we've come since 2019, and I think halfway through the episodes, I believe at episode 20 or 20 to 30, we've started to see the difference in the comment sections, and from.
So have I.
Yes, and I was gonna ask you that, so how's you as you've been following the podcast for so long, and being a senator as well, and I think you jumped in at that around that time. So how was that, as a senator, jumping in, being of Chuukese descent and being at a level where, people look up to you and, these are our leaders and stuff. So what was going through your mind and as all of that was happening?
Yeah, it's been, of course, a challenge, but I knew it would be challenging, dealing with these issues of, race. We can call it racial tensions, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. And really, there was a lot of tension, especially as you mentioned after the machete incident in Manilao kind of sparked a lot of these things. And I think through the efforts that people like yourself and others in the community have done to try to bring everyone together, I think has really helped prevent things from getting worse when I think they could have gone another direction and could have gotten totally worse for the island in terms of people getting along. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of problems and there are still a lot of tensions. It's almost impossible to eliminate 100% any sort of racial tensions. I mean, you can see it in the U.S. Every day. There's some sort of racial tensions in the U.S. between the many different races there, and that's what happens when you mix a lot of different cultures together. It's just a part of human nature. People want to stick to their culture, and then so that can kind of put them against another person's culture without having a full understanding of that culture. But I think the efforts that your podcast particularly has done have been great because you've been able to showcase the positive side of people from the FAS or freely associated states, people from throughout Micronesia. And just the name of your podcast alone is perfect because it's One Micronesia, reminding everyone that we are all one. We're all one people. No matter where you're from, we're human beings, right? And then if you want to get even smaller than that, we're all islanders. We're all from Micronesia. Even the Marianas is in the geographical region of Micronesia. And although Chamorros do have a very distinct and unique culture, as we all do, they share a lot in common with other people in the Micronesian region just by being islanders. We all live off the land and the sea. The ocean is a very important part of islander culture. We all eat things traditionally eat things like breadfruit. In fact, Chamorros have a name for it, lemai, and you can still see lemai on the fiesta table
Yes.
during fiestas, right? And we all know Islanders love lemai throughout this whole region. Everyone has their own name for it. In Chuk, it's actually called mai.
Yeah.
What is it called in Yat?
Tho. We call it tho.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But see, we all like that stuff, right? So there's a lot more that we have in common than we have that's different. And I think podcasts like yours helps to share and showcase what we have in common rather than showcasing what our differences are.
Yes, and thank you for talking. The name of the podcast too is, I wish I was the one who came up with it, but it really was a concept that that goes back to the late Edmund Wengu.
Yes,
and the team at the Micronesia at the time, before they created the sub part of it, which is Micronesia Resource Center as we see it now, which they're doing amazing, and I thank them every day, and I thank Sam, you guys are doing so good. Thank you guys so much for what you're doing. Thank you to the team that grew from just 3 to now to about 12. Right. They have a whole team right now that they can mobilize at one time and cover the whole island. So
they're doing an amazing job. That's another organization is doing an amazing job to help bridge all these gaps between the different cultures on Guam.
Oh yes. So it goes back to brother Eddie Boo, and you also got to thank Sergeant Paul Tapau, who's been in it since the beginning. Yes, and he was one of the reasons why the podcast started. He reached out to Sam and Sabrina and was like, we have to do something about this. What do we do? And Sabrina was like, well, we did a One Micronesia 4 series with just featuring 4 amazing FAS citizens here on Guam, working in the hotel industry, working elsewhere in industries that you'd think they would never work, or they're working at it but not really getting the recognition they deserve. So that 4-part series was so huge that Paul Tapau was like, Sabrina, we have to do something. So that's where this came out. I got pulled to the side by Sabrina, and Bree was like, we want to do this thing, and there's nobody fit to be the host than you. And this was days after the 2019 machete attacks, and I was like, I don't know about this. I really, this is something that if I do wrong, my career is literally, I'm done. So and then
well, you did it right, brother. You did it right.
And I was just like, I don't know, give me time. She's like, I'll give you a day. Think about it. Though the next day I was just thinking. I was like, and throughout my whole career in radio, I've always wanted to give back to the FSM citizens and the FAS citizens. I just didn't know how. So for me, when Sabrina presented that opportunity, though it was so hard at the time, it was scary too, but I was like, you know what? Let's go. Let's do this. So
and you did it, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, Senator. And like I said, you're one of the guests that I've always wanted on. It just so happens that time and scheduling was always a thing, but now we're here at the 100th episode. So again, Senator, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me
on the show. All right, Senator, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to dive into what your 2-term is all about. We're going to talk about some of the things that you did, and most importantly, and I think what everybody is seeing you for right now and is praising you for is the cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. Guys, you're watching the One Micronesia Podcast. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Hafre, Mogathin, and Ranium. Welcome back. 100th episode of the One Micronesia Podcast, and we're sitting here with the one, the only, Senator Clynt Ridgell. Brother Clynt, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on again. Man, you 2 terms in the Guam legislature. That's huge. Being the first ever, of Chuukese descent.
Right.
Let's call it FSA. You're representing pretty much. And I was so happy during that election when the numbers came out, everything was officialized, and I was just like, wow, we did this. I mean, we saw Barack Obama break, some in for the United States, the first ever black president, but seeing you as somebody from our community make it that far, it was huge in a way that we're like, wow, if you can go that far, then to many of us who are doing great things here, we can make it further than where we are today.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I was able to, anytime I'm able to encourage anyone to do better and to better themselves and to reach for the stars. Honestly, I always say it, shoot for the stars, because if you miss, you land on the moon, right? So, so I always encourage everyone to aim high. And I'm glad that I've been able to show that, anything's possible. Yeah, of course. I'm so honored to have been given the opportunity, that the people trusted in me to be able to elect me for 2 terms as the first senator on Guam of FSM descent. It was huge. Yeah, for me personally, of course, absolutely. And for those who don't know, I'm half Chukis. My mom is from the outer islands of Chuk, particularly the Mortlock Islands of Chuk, from the island of Tuh. So shout out to my homies from Tuh and from the Mortlocks. So yeah. And my dad is a white American. My late father, he just passed in May of this year, but my father was an American white guy from the States. But I was born and raised. Oh, thank you. I was born and raised on Guam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyways, back to your question, I guess it's been an honor, and I'm glad I was able to represent as best as I could our people and to show a positive side to what, people think of as Micronesians, and also to remind everyone that we're all Micronesians in this region, because this is the Micronesian region.
So, Senator, you talk about that. You got in, and it's crazy, and you got in 2 terms, and you had a goal. You're like, I'm gonna get in. I have things to do. I have a checklist to go through.
Exactly.
And you checked it off with 2 terms. Let's talk about some of the things that were on your checklist, and then we'll get to the last one, which is the huge one, which is cannabis. So let's start there.
Oh, absolutely. So when I campaigned, and you can dig up the old footage if you want. I was here on KUAM's Meet the Candidate or Decision 2018 it was, I think, at the time. So
yes,
yeah. So I was on the show. They would ask me what my platform is, and I said from the beginning, and I stuck to my platform, was to make Guam green again. And that was green with agriculture, green with renewable energy, green with environmental protections, and green with cannabis. So those were the main things in my platform that I was pushing. And I would say ultimately, we'd be green with cash if we did all these things.
Yes.
And so I've pushed a lot of agricultural bills. They're not as they're not as famous as the cannabis bill, of course, is the most famous just because of its nature, right? But I've actually managed to pass quite a few agricultural bills. Most recently, we just passed a bill to allow people to take wild deer fawn, orphaned fawn from the jungle. So a lot of times hunters will encounter an orphaned fawn of deer because the parents were hunted maybe or whatever. So they'll come across an orphaned fawn, and technically they weren't supposed to touch them, but now they're allowed to take them home, raise them as livestock for food, right? So that's in line with my idea of agriculture. And the reason I'm such a huge proponent of agriculture on Guam is we are importing over 90% of the food we eat. And we're seeing right now that when we have problems with shipping and worldwide shipping problems, sometimes the shelves are thin. So we've got to start producing our own food just from a food security standpoint. So this is one effort towards food security, allow people to be able to raise deer. And in the budget process, this year's budget, I managed to find funding in there to appropriate to the Department of Agriculture to purchase a mobile slaughterhouse unit. There would be a USDA approved mobile slaughterhouse. Wow. Why is that important? It's important because right now you can't sell any meat in the stores or any meat that's raised on Guam. You can't sell any meat in the stores or to restaurants that's raised on Guam unless it's slaughtered in a USDA approved slaughterhouse. So this is the first step. Get this mobile slaughterhouse, get it USDA approved, and then hopefully we can start seeing some locally raised animals, locally raised meat being able to be sold in Guam stores. So I think that would open the door for people who are raising pigs, people who are raising cattle, people raising deer, or people who are raising caribou even. I see caribou as a possibility. So this is all just to get that sort of kick-started, and my ultimate vision would be one day to have a brick and mortar slaughterhouse, if you will. But hopefully that will come in the future. Other stuff I pushed, renewable energy. I was a co-sponsor and one of the main champions of a bill to require 100% renewable energy by 2045. Wow. So that will require Guam to be 100% renewable energy by 2045. I was a co-sponsor together with Senator Amanda Shelton. So Amanda Shelton was the main sponsor. I was the co-sponsor, but I really pushed it to get to the 100% for 2045. Other bills, environmental bills. Here's one. There's others, but here's one just real quick is a bill that allows for tax incentives or tax breaks for companies who reduce the waste stream through recycling efforts or other efforts. We did a bill, it's a recycling bill basically, we did, that allows companies to be able to get tax breaks if they're able to prove that they're reducing the waste stream in any way. So if they're taking something, recycling it and selling it, they could get tax breaks, tax incentives for that. So that's one. And then of course, the biggest one that everyone's familiar with is the Guam Cannabis Industry Act. And that was actually the first bill I introduced and passed in my first term. So right out the gate, I was like, I'm going to hit the hardest one first and go from there.
Wow, and look how far we've come, and now we're not there yet. I think there's a couple left, more left to iron out with the selling.
We're very close, but already the rules and regulations have been approved. 2 businesses so far have applied for their license, and now it's kind of a long application process because the Cannabis Control Board wanted to be extremely careful with it. So there's a lot of stuff they have to go through, but they've made the first hurdle, which is 2 companies have gotten their responsible official license, and now they got to go through a few other steps. We still need to get a laboratory here to be able to test it. I have spoken to a couple of potential companies that say that they want to open a laboratory. One supposedly is really close to opening it, so be on the lookout for that. Hopefully they get that laboratory up and running soon so that the cannabis industry can truly take off.
All right, Senator, well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about what's next for Senator Clynt Ridgell. Because like I said, 2 terms, all of that you just explained with more that we didn't touch base on. You did so much, and it was such an awesome from a person's point of view, from looking from the outside. It's you've done so much, and it's such great bills, and these are bills that are going to serve not only for today but for the future. And you talk about looking at 2045 for stuff like making Guam 100% renewable energy. I think that is awesome. So that's something. These are things that you put in play today that we might not see for the next couple of years, but we'll definitely see in the 10-year, 20-year run.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Senator, we're going to take a break, but we'll come back and we'll talk about what's next for Senator Clynt.
Thanks.
All right, we're back, guys. We're watching the One Micronesia Podcast. Hafere Mogathin and Rananim. We're back. One Micronesia Podcast, the 100th episode. And wow, the talk so far has been amazing. I love it. Sitting here with the one, the only Senator Clynt Ridgell. Wow. Senator, we started the beginning and talk about how the podcast all started. You chimed in with things that you saw on your end as a senator through 2019 all the way till today. We got into some of the things that the amazing things that you had part in the legislature. So now we're talking about it. We're getting ready for the general election to ring in the 37th Guam legislature. Yeah. But you're not going to be in it.
Is it the 37th?
30,
yeah,
37.
I lost track.
Yeah. He's like, I lost track. One of those. So we're getting ready to ring in possibly
a new legislature,
but you're not going to be in it. With great reasons behind it. So I guess really let's talk about, before we talk about the reason why you're not going back in, talk about how's it been for you as just not with the bills, but as somebody who served 2 terms. How's it been? So how has your 2 terms been?
Oh man, first of all, it's just been an amazing experience. So overwhelmed with gratitude, honestly. It's been an amazing experience. A lot of times my wife and I will talk to each other and be like, can you believe I actually got elected? I have old friends who be like, they can't believe I made it to the Senate. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's just been an amazing experience. to actually have the opportunity to serve the people of Guam for 2 terms, and to really focus on and push, like we spoke about earlier, the items on my agenda to make Guam green again. That was my focus, and that was my purpose for running anyways, was to get in and push those items. And so I feel that I feel very grateful that I've been able to do that. And so it has challenges, of course. I'm not gonna lie, it's a very, very difficult job. It's a very challenging job. The people are always watching you. They want to make sure you're doing what's best for the island. There's a lot of competing interests. Not everyone agrees with you. You're going to get into, disagreements and sometimes there's a lot of negativity that can be involved with politics, but I tried my best. I did my best to focus on positive things and pushing and advancing the issues that were important to me and just focusing on that as much as possible.
Wow. So, Senator, I know we've talked about it. I know you put on social media the reason behind you not running again for the 37th Guam legislature. But for people out there who don't know, just run it by again. Like,
sure, yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, it was never my intent to stay in office for a long time. Like I said, I wanted to focus on these issues, push them as much as possible to make Guam green again. Those that I mentioned in my platform, those issues in my platform, I wanted to focus on that, pass as much as I could, and then get out. I didn't want to stay in and just kind of sit there and take up space and just hold a seat. For what? I had a purpose in mind. I wanted to get these things done and then move on from that. In addition to that, it's also very challenging to juggle personal life and political life, to be honest. It's very challenging. The political life is pretty much a 24/7 thing, especially with this cell phone right here. With cell phones now, you're constantly on the phone. People can message you, they can DM you, they can Facebook you, they can Instagram you, they can tag you on Facebook. You're like almost 24/7, you're monitoring this stuff. Everyone's reaching out to you. We're in this age of information and constant connection where people are constantly reaching out, which is fine, but it's also very challenging, and it's difficult to balance that along with the family. And as I was mentioning to you earlier off camera, it's kind of like when you're in politics, for me, to do it right, I had to put that became the forefront of my mind. Everything was, political service, public service, was just at the forefront of everything, constantly thinking about, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? How should I respond to this? Responding to people's concerns, constantly thinking about that stuff. Whereas my family goes to the background, right? You kind of have to put them to the back, because you have to put the people first, because you ran for the people. Yes. So you got to put the public first. And because of that, it puts your family second. And so, I had done that for 2 terms, right? And, now it was time to put my family first, right? And my family in the forefront of my mind. And a lot of things that I've been struggling with behind the scenes, I'm not a very public person when it comes to my private life, but I know I have to share some of it so people understand a little bit. But I was going through a lot with taking care of my parents. My father passed away in May. As I mentioned earlier, he'd been very ill for years since I actually got into office. Taking care of my dad, taking care of my mom, who's also has a lot of health problems. So I've been taking care of both of them. And then during the pandemic, we actually had another baby.
Yes, congratulations.
Thanks. She's in Aguaidza. I love her. She's gonna turn 2 in January. So she's still a baby in diapers. So, I got a lot of these things that are juggling, and if I was to run again, I would really just be putting them on the back burner again. Running a campaign and running an office takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. I'd be out there waving all the time and just doing all these different things. So I wanted to, I had to take a step back from that and say, you know what? I got to think about my family and focus on them first.
Awesome. Well, Senator, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's the last part. It's the goodbyes, the last remarks, and all of that. Okay, we'll be back, guys. One Micronesia Podcast. Afre, Mogathin, and Hananim, welcome back. One Micronesia Podcast, the 100th episode is now coming to an end. Wow, what a talk so far, Senator. That's been interesting. I think block 2 for me was the most important, because yes, I knew that cannabis was at top of your list. I did not know some of the stuff that you talked about was a part of your list as well. I know going green was the main thing you were talking about, but to know that there are some other things, some little some little items on there that you worked on, now realizing it, I'm like, oh yes. So you did so much, and in the 2 terms that you spent in the Guam legislature, like I said, you're taking a break now. We talked about the reasoning behind it, and then what's next for you. So right now, Senator, like I said, I started at the beginning, that 2018 election, you got in. And like I said, like as a young person like me from the FSM, seeing somebody like you who have of Chuukese descent making it into the legislature, it was very inspiring for a young person. So at this point, Senator, talk to the young people of Micronesia. I'm not going to call it FSM only or FAS or the Marianas. I'm going to call it as is for Micronesia. Talk to the youngins of Micronesia. Like, what message would you tell them?
Oh, absolutely. My message is just, don't ever give up. Work hard. Have a dream. Don't be afraid to dream. Dream and then work towards that dream. Have a dream, have a vision, have a goal. Set yourself goals. Figure out what is it you want to become, If you want to become a police, whatever it is, you want to become a police officer, work towards that. Figure out what does it take to become a police officer. Talk to police officers. Ask them, sir, how would I become a police officer? You want to be a fireman? Work hard to become a fireman. Talk to firemen that you know. Ask them, what does it take to become a fireman? Find mentors in the area that you want to be involved in, and learn from them. Ask them to help show you the ropes on how to get involved in something. If you want to be a doctor, a physician, whatever, same thing applies. You want to be a teacher, an educator, you want to be a construction worker, whatever you want to be, you can be it. You can do it. You just have to put the work in, and you have to believe in it. You have to believe in yourself, and don't be afraid to ask other people for help and guidance along the way. And you can really accomplish anything you put your mind to.
All right. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Senator. So I guess we'll move on to the last remarks here. Anything you want to throw in before we close out?
I'm so grateful to the people of Guam for giving me this opportunity to serve these 2 terms in the legislature. It's been an ultimate honor of mine. So grateful and thankful. Thankful to the people of the FSM and FAS communities, the people of Guam who voted for me, and thank you for your podcast and for having me on today. It's been such an honor. I just can't even begin to express the honor and gratitude I have for everyone.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, that pretty much brings us to a close again, Senator. Thank you so much for honoring the podcast, the 100th episode, with your presence here. And like I said, thank you for all that you've done in your 2 terms, the things that you've set up to not only for today and tomorrow, but for the future of Guam and hopefully down the line for Micronesia. So thank you so much for being an inspiration to kids from the FSM, especially a young kid like me. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Walag.
Thank you, Pui Pui. So, all right, guys, that pretty much concludes the 100th episode of the One Micronesia Podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. My name is Victorious. This has been a great one with Senator Clynt Ridgell. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.